Welcome back, everybody, to another deep dive.
Oh,
We love to take these journeys into all sorts of fascinating topics, and today we're going to be diving into the world of project management.
ooh, exciting.
It is. It is. And, I think project management is something that affects all of us in different ways, whether we're, organizing a small event or, tackling a huge work project.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, think about like planning a vacation, even.
Exactly.
That's a project in itself.
It is. And so today we're going to be taking some guidance from a really interesting textbook I found called Project Control Through Networks.
Okay.
And our mission today is to basically figure out how we can take these seemingly complex projects and break them down, visualize them, and really gain that control that we all crave.
Love it. I'm all about control, especially when it comes to projects.
Right. So we're going to learn about, practical techniques, like how to identify those really crucial tasks, the ones that can make or break the whole thing.
The critical path.
Exactly. We'll get into that. And also, how to spot those potential bottlenecks before they even happen.
I feel like this is going to be a good one.
I think so too.
Yeah.
I think so too. So where do we even begin with all this?
Well, I think the first thing we have to understand is that, projects, they're not these like big, scary monsters like we often make them out to be in our minds.
Yeah, we kind of build them up.
Right. They're really just a bunch of connected tasks, like a puzzle.
Oh,
And
yeah.
once you see those connections, it all becomes so much easier to manage.
So it's about breaking it down, but also seeing the big picture all at the same time.
Exactly. It's like having a roadmap for your project.
Okay, I like that analogy.
It shows you not only where you're going, but, the best way to get there and helps you, avoid those wrong turns.
Okay, I'm with you. So let's talk about this roadmap. Where do we even start?
Well, the foundation of any good project plan is what's called a work breakdown structure, or WBS for short.
Okay, I've heard of that.
Basically, you're taking that big project and breaking it down, chopping it up into smaller, more manageable pieces.
Like taking a giant puzzle and sorting the pieces into different sections.
Perfect analogy. And the way you break it down, it can vary depending on the project.
Oh, so there's no one right way to do it.
Right. Sometimes you might want to organize it by teams, the different departments involved, or maybe by phases, like the different stages of the project, or even by location if it's a big project spanning multiple locations.
Oh, that makes sense.
The book actually gives a really clear example using the construction of a two-story building.
Oh, perfect.
They show how you can visualize the whole project from laying the foundation to putting up the walls to, painting and all the steps in between.
I bet that visual really helps.
It does. And, it's really important not to rush this WBS process because, if you miss a crucial task or you underestimate how long something's going to take, that can really mess things up later on.
You're setting yourself up for failure.
Right.
Okay, so a well-structured WBS.
Yeah.
It's really a foundation.
Absolutely. It's like, building a house on solid ground. You need that strong foundation.
Okay, so once we have that foundation, then what?
But then we can start using tools to actually visualize our timeline. And one of the most common tools is the Gantt chart.
Oh, yeah, Gantt charts. I've definitely seen those before.
Have you ever used them?
I've dabbled,
Yeah.
but I'm not an expert or anything.
Well, they're basically like bar graphs, right?
Yeah.
And they show you the start and finish dates for each task so you can see the whole project laid out in time.
And they're named after Henri Gantt, right?
You got it. He's considered like the father of project management. Pretty cool, huh?
Yeah, very cool. I mean, in the Gantt chart, it helps you track progress, right? See if you're on schedule or if things are, falling behind.
Exactly. The textbook even has a little example using a small industrial project, and it really illustrates how helpful a Gantt chart can be.
So we can actually see, if we're ahead of a schedule or behind schedule just by looking at this chart.
Yeah. And that can be really valuable information when you're trying to, keep a project on track.
Right, but Gantt charts, they just show timelines, right? Do they kind of miss something important?
You're right. They don't always tell the whole story about how tasks are actually connected to each other.
You mean like which tasks have to be finished before others can start?
Exactly. Like you can't put up the roof of a house before you've built the walls, right?
Makes sense.
And that's where networks come in. They take us to the next level of project planning.
So networks help us see those dependencies between tasks.
Yes. They're like taking those puzzle pieces we sorted in the WBS and actually figuring out how they fit together.
I'm starting to see the bigger picture here.
Good.
Okay, but networks, they sound a bit complex.
Yeah.
What are like the key things we need to know about them?
Well, one of the most important concepts is the critical path, which you mentioned earlier.
Oh, right.
It's basically the longest sequence of tasks that determines, the shortest possible time to complete the whole project.
So any delays on that critical path, they'll delay the entire project.
Exactly. which is why understanding it is so important.
So if we can manage those tasks on the critical path, effectively, we can keep the whole project on track.
You got it. And networks, they can also help us do things like allocate resources more efficiently, make sure we're not wasting time or money.
Okay, that's huge.
And they can even help us spot those potential bottlenecks, those tasks that might cause problems down the line.
This is amazing. It's like networks give us a whole new level of control over our projects.
They really do. And don't worry, there are specific rules and techniques for drawing these networks. It might seem a little technical at first, but once you get the hang of it, it becomes much easier.
Oh, you've definitely got me intrigued. Let's dive into those rules and techniques. How do we actually start drawing these networks?
All right, let's do it. So there are a few different ways to draw these networks. One common method is called activity on arch, or AOA for short.
Okay, AOA.
And it's a visual way to represent all those tasks and their dependencies using arrows and nodes.
Arrows and nodes. Okay, I can picture that.
Yeah, so basically the arrows, they represent the activities, the actual tasks, and the nodes. They represent those points in time where tasks connect.
The nodes are like milestones or checkpoints.
Exactly. They mark the start and finish of each activity.
Okay, so we're basically creating like a flow chart of our project.
You got it. It shows how everything flows from start to finish.
And what about those rules you mentioned earlier? Are there any specific rules we need to follow when drawing these AOA networks?
Yeah, there are a few key ones. For example, every activity needs a start and an end point.
Right, which are represented by those nodes.
Exactly. And the arrows, they always have to point in the direction of the project flow, from start to finish.
So no going backwards.
No going backwards in time, at least.
Fair enough.
And the textbook actually, it walks us through an example using that two-story building again.
Oh, perfect.
And it's really helpful to see how these networks come together in a visual way.
Visuals are always good.
They are now, remember we talked about those dummy activities earlier?
Yeah, those placeholders.
Right. So sometimes you need to add those dummy activities to the network to clarify those dependencies between tasks.
Okay, I think I get the concept. But can you give me like a real-world example of when you'd actually use a dummy activity?
Sure. So let's stick with that house building example.
Okay.
Imagine you have two tasks that can happen at the same time, like installing the plumbing and wiring.
Right. Those can happen simultaneously.
They can, but both of those tasks, they need to be completed before you can start putting up the drywall.
Oh, yeah. That makes sense.
So how would you show that dependency in the network?
I'm not sure I see where the dummy activity comes in.
Well, you'd use a dummy activity to connect the completion of both the plumbing and the wiring to the start of the drywall installation.
Oh, so it's like an invisible link that makes sure both tasks are done before the next one can start.
Exactly. And it doesn't represent any actual work or any time. It's just there to clarify the logic of the network.
So dummy activities, they're kind of like behind-the-scenes heroes, making sure everything flows smoothly.
I like that way of putting it now. Once we've got our network all drawn out and looking good, how do we actually use it to manage the project?
Yeah, that's the big question, right?
It is. And this is where the critical path method, or CPM, comes in.
Okay, CPM, that sounds familiar.
It's a technique for determining, that shortest possible project duration and identifying that critical path, which we talked about earlier.
Right, the backbone of the project, the one we don't want to mess with.
Exactly. So how do we actually find this critical path using our fancy network?
Yeah, how do we do that?
Well, it involves a two-step process. First, we do something called a forward pass.
A forward pass, okay.
And that's basically where we calculate the earliest possible start and finish times for each activity.
So we're working our way through the network from beginning to the end.
You got it. We're figuring out, how soon each task can start and finish based on its predecessors, the tasks that have to come before it.
So we're building up the schedule step by step.
Right. And then we do a backward pass.
Okay, so now we're going in reverse.
We are. We're starting from the project's end date and working our way back, calculating the latest possible start and finish times for each activity.
Without delaying the whole project.
Exactly. So we're essentially figuring out how much wiggle room we have for each task.
So the backward pass tells us how much we can slip without messing up the deadline.
You got it. And by comparing those earliest and latest times, we can identify those tasks with absolutely zero wiggle room.
Those critical path tasks.
You got it. They're the ones where any delay will push back the entire project.
It's like finding those pressure points in the project.
Yes. And that's why understanding the critical path is so crucial for effective project management.
Okay, I'm with you so far, but let's be real. Things don't always go according to plan, right?
Of course not. Projects are dynamic. Things happen,
Life throws you a curveball.
Exactly. And that's where understanding Slack and floats becomes super important.
Okay, slack and floats. Those terms sound like they give us some breathing room.
They do. Think of it this way. Slack refers to the flexibility we have at specific points in the project, like milestones.
Okay, so slack is for events.
Right. While float is about the flexibility we have within individual activities or tasks.
So float is for tasks and slack is for events.
You'll have at it.
Okay, so slack and floats, they do sound like they give us a little bit of breathing room,
They do think of it like this Slack. It refers to the flexibility we have at specific points in the project.
Okay.
Like milestones or events, those key dates.
Okay, so slack is for events.
Right. While float is all about that flexibility within the individual activities, the tasks themselves.
The float is for tasks and slack is for events.
Got it. Exactly. You're getting it.
Okay, so can you give me like an example of each, to really solidify this?
Sure. Let's say we're waiting on a permit for that house we're building, before we can start construction.
Okay.
That's an event, right? A specific point in time. Now, if that permit process, it takes longer than expected, well, that creates slack in the schedule, before the next task can begin.
So slack is like a buffer zone for those moments when things are kind of out of our control.
Exactly. It gives us a little cushion,
I like cushions.
We all do now. Let's say the task of ordering windows for the house, that has some extra time built into it.
Okay.
That's float. It means we can delay ordering those windows by, a certain amount of time without impacting that critical path or the overall project deadline.
So float gives us flexibility within those individual tasks.
Yes. And there are actually, different types of float, each with its own characteristics: total float, free float, independent float.
Oh, wow. So it gets even more granular.
It does. But understanding those different types, it can really help us make smarter decisions about resource allocation,
Right.
and even potentially shorten the project duration if we need to.
So knowing about these floats, it's like having all these different levers we can pull, to adjust the project schedule and make sure everything's running smoothly.
Exactly. It's all about optimization.
This is all making so much more sense now. But I have a question. We've been talking about critical paths, slack floats, all these network-based techniques, but it seems like a lot of this relies on accurate estimations, right?
Absolutely. You hit the nail on the head. These networks, they're only as good as the information that we put into them.
Right. So what if our estimations are wrong?
Right.
What if we underestimate how long a task will take, or if we miss a crucial dependency?
Well, that's when things can go sideways.
Yeah.
The whole plan can get thrown off.
So how do we make sure our estimations are as accurate as possible?
Well, it all starts with involving the right people,
Okay.
Talk to the experts, the ones who will actually be doing the work, get their insights. But its appearance, don't just rely on gut feelings or, guesses.
So collaboration is key.
Absolutely. And it's not just about getting those initial estimations, right? We need to continuously monitor the project as it progresses, identify any variances from the plan, and adjust the network accordingly.
So it's not a set it and forget it kind of thing.
No. Project management is dynamic.
Yeah.
Things change, unexpected challenges come up, and we need to be flexible enough to adapt.
Wow, this has been so insightful. I feel like I've gained a whole new perspective on project management.
I'm glad to hear that. And these network-based techniques, they're just one approach to project management. There are other methodologies out there, each with its own, strengths and weaknesses.
So it's about having a toolbox of techniques and knowing when to use the right one.
Exactly. And the more you learn about these different approaches, the more confident and effective you'll become as a project manager.
This has been a fantastic deep dive. Thank you so much for breaking all of this down for me.
My pleasure. Remember, project management can be challenging, but with the right tools and a willingness to learn and adapt, you can really achieve amazing things.
Well, I'm feeling ready to tackle my next project with a whole new level of confidence armed with the power of networks. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the world of project management networks. Until next time, keep those projects flowing smoothly.